EDL 853 case study, and I am Amanda Park. Looking at the case and the summary of the case, Nottingham High School is a part of the Dover Unified School District. This district has 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. The high school in the district is Nottingham High School. Miguel Hernandez is a student and athlete. The family moved into the Dover district so that all 4 boys in the family could attend an academically strong school, as well as play football for a very strong and notorious program. Miguel Hernandez was considered the best quarterback that the school had seen since the 1960s. Miguel Hernandez was the first sophomore to be the starting quarterback in the school's history. And again, this added to the fact that he was considered the best quarterback since the 1960s. During one of the most important games of the year, this game and a win in this game would guarantee a trip to the semifinals. Unfortunately, during this game, Miguel Hernandez was tackled and sustained a life altering injury. This life altering injury would give him partial paralysis from the waist down for life. Once Miguel Hernandez was well enough, he was cleared to return to school, but he would now be in a wheelchair and he needed access to all of his classes and everything else that he needed for his academic success. But he was denied this access because he was denied access to his biology class, which he very much needed in order to proceed to the college setting. And now his parents have hired an attorney due to the lack of access. If we look at these steps, we see that number 1, Miguel needs wheelchair accessible access to all of his normal classes, as if he had never been hurt. Number 2, his schedule was actually changed without his knowledge and without the knowledge of his parents. They removed biology from his schedule and did not make any of them aware. Number 3, Mr. Hernandez, who is Miguel's father, has now brought an attorney to the school. Number 4, the attorney has cited Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 as the reason as to why he is there. And number 5, with college as a goal, Miguel needs biology. He also needs other upper level classes. And so, despite whatever issues the school may have, he needs access to these classes. When we look at the legal and ethical issues presented, number 1, legally, the school and leadership has an obligation to follow the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Number 2, legally, the school and leadership has an obligation to follow all policies and regulations for FAPE and IDEA, as well as Section 504. Number 3, ethically, the counselors, administration, and everyone else should have considered and consulted with Miguel, and they should have consulted with his parents according to his new needs because of the life-altering position he's been put in. And they need to keep in mind that this position was due to his playing on a field for the team for the school. Number 4, ethically, Miguel's parents should have been made aware of the changes in his schedule. Those at the school should have communicated with the Hernandez family in total. Everyone should have been brought together for a meeting and consulted when these changes were made. Both ethically and legally, the buildings in the district, due to a lack of funds, which is not the fault of the Hernandez family, have not been fully updated for the needs of students with disabilities. This affects not just the Hernandez family, but all students with disabilities. If we look at the issue synthesized, the legal obligations of IDEA, FAPE, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 are the staples of special education, and all of the accommodations, abilities, regulations, success they're able to provide for all students, let alone special education students. When these are ignored or not provided as they should be according to the law, This hinders the ability for school staff to provide the best possible future for students. And this is precisely what has occurred for the Hernandez family, for Michael Hernandez, after this life altering, unforeseen circumstance that has placed him in a situation that now needs these services in order to advance and become successful, as was his original intention and his original plan for his future and his college intentions. So, when we look at the facts, we look at the people. Dr. Harvey is the superintendent for the Dover Unified School District. He has a great working relationship with all of the staff in the district and each one of the buildings at every level. Miguel Hernandez is a sophomore at Nottingham High School. He and his three brothers started at Nottingham so as to have a great academically sound school as well as an excellent football program. He was injured during a football game and is now paralyzed from the waist down and is permanently in a wheelchair. Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez are the parents of Miguel Hernandez. They're advocating for his needs and rights now that he is in this wheelchair, but they're still aiming for him to attend college and excel academically, even with this life altering physical issue that has been presented before him. They still want him to excel academically, and he still wants to excel academically, and as a school that needs to be provided for him. If we look at the place, the school district is a large district. It has 3,200 students. Of these 3,200 students, they are spread across 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a large high school. The community is extremely large, obviously. While it is large, it is still very supportive of all the schools. And if they knew that this was happening within the high school, there would probably be an outrage and a cry out for the community to step in and help with this matter. The program, this is a public school district. Therefore, it is subject to all federal, state, and local laws, as well as policies for public school districts. In this particular case, it is central to the high school level. Special education will be the prominent educational program that will be used and monitored for this particular case. A look at the review and priority of the information. The conflict presented can potentially be harmful to other stakeholders in the school and in the community. Teachers, administrators, board members, students, community members, they all have a large stake in the outcome of this situation. They also have a large stake in the decisions that are going to be made from this particular situation. More of the stakeholders involved, such as Dr. Harper, who is the superintendent, should be contacted for assistance. He should be asked about his advice and further instruction to handle this particular conflict. Although additional information is always useful, and asking questions helps to aid in all decision making in every situation, there is enough information in this particular situation to make an informed decision without additional information that might be needed. If additional information through questions becomes available through the process, it'll help with the process and strengthen the ability to make a stronger decision. But from the get go, it is not absolutely necessary to have this additional information in order to make a proper decision for this particular case. Let's look at our options. First, we could take no action. Second, we ignore the threats, warnings of the attorney and continue to originally planned action and take a chance with the lack of compliance with both FAPE and Section 504. Or we could have a meeting with the parents of Miguel Hernandez and all the other stakeholders and create an alternative arrangement with a schedule for Miguel Hernandez. Or we could schedule a 504 meeting with the special education department, which is what is usually called for in this situation, and follow protocol for special education requirements and provide the minimum required for Miguel Hernandez. If biology is not an option at this point, then we should provide some sort of alternative for Miguel Hernandez. Or we could schedule a 504 meeting with all stakeholders and the special education department. We would then create a schedule for Miguel Hernandez that not only fulfills the requirements for his college future, but also allows him to have full and equal access to all classes and all services. This fulfills the requirements of 504. This requires for us to fulfill the requirements of all aspects of legal special education protocol. School leadership will then need to have a separate meeting to address the issues of physical access and requirements in order to accommodate all wheelchair access in all buildings in the district for not just Miguel Hernandez, but for all other future wheelchair bound students. This needs to be addressed. When we look at the possible consequences, if we take no action, it could possibly, and this is a high possibility, create a legal issue with a possible lawsuit on the grounds of Section 504. This also creates a moral and ethical situation because the school will not be providing services, access, or FAPE for not just Miguel Hernandez, as it has a legal and moral obligation to do so, but for any other future students who need these requirements as well. The situation and the manner in which it is handled could very well affect poor morale for teachers, other stakeholders in the building, when others hear and know of what has happened. It is also possible that everything could be fine and everyone will just simply comply with the manner in which the school has handled things and the situation as it is. Probably not so, but it could happen. If we look at meeting with alternatives for, for Miguel Hernandez, this solution could end with an alternative class schedule for Miguel Hernandez. And this would ultimately be what he needs while still allowing for the school to continue on and not have to pay out this large sum of money to change the physical setting of the school or any of the other schools in the district. This could appear to be a way for the school to mask its inability to comply with Section 504 and FAPE and create a bigger legal issue that could ultimately end up in court. If we look at a 504 meeting with just the minimum requirements, this solution will provide communication between all of the stakeholders. It will also give Miguel Hernandez and his parents the opportunity to voice his needs, have the school meet the needs as they are able to. And then the school will then be able to provide as they can and give additional alternatives for anything they're unable to meet directly. The parents and Miguel will possibly be happy with the outcome of the meeting and conversation, and everything will be just fine. However, down the road, if the parents or Miguel are once again unhappy with anything, something out of the blue at the school, this incident with an outcome that is still not completely legal could come back to bite them in the rear and create other issues later. The parents of Miguel, as well as Miguel, could reject all that is presented at the meeting and then still bring a lawsuit against the school altogether. If we look at the possibility of a 504 meeting with all required legal requirements met, this solution will provide the needed communication between all stakeholders, and it's also going to include a separate meeting for all of the school leaders. And with this meeting, everyone will then be on the same page. Miguel will acquire all that he needs to be successful for his current well being as well as his current and future successes. The school will be able to come to a place where they are in complete compliance with all laws, regulations, and policies. Miguel Hernandez and his parents will have helped the school establish better legal barriers and better communication overall for all future education students as well as all other students and their future successes. The solution will also provide for better relationships, morale, safety, opportunity, FAPE, and access for all students, not just special education students. And it is possible, rare but possible, that the solution could become a stalemate and end up back at the very beginning again and starting all over. When we look at the pros and cons, if we take no action, the pros, there will not be any additional dollars that are needed to spend to help with any sort of compliance. The cons, well, we have lots of ethical and legal ramifications that could result. There'll be a loss of positive staff morale that could taint the professional relationships with the principal, superintendent, and all of the relationships that everybody's worked hard to establish. It will create an atmosphere and feeling of mistrust with all stakeholders. It's going to give the impression the school does not care about laws, regulations, or ethical standards of special education. If we look at the pros and cons of meeting with just some alternatives, well, we have better communication that'll be established, an alternative schedule that'll better serve the needs of Miguel Hernandez, and of course, other students. But when we look at the cons, we have ethical and legal ramifications that are ultimately going to result at some point. We have a loss of positive staff morale that could taint professional relationships. We have created an atmosphere and feeling of mistrust. And we are giving the impression the school does not care about laws, regulations, or ethical standards for special education. When we look again at the 504 meeting with just the minimum requirements, again, the 504 requirements will be met, and that is a positive. Another pro would be we have better communication and an alternative schedule that is going to better serve the needs of Miguel Hernandez. However, when we look at the cons, we still have the ethical and legal ramifications. We have a loss of positive staff morale. We have an atmosphere and feeling of mistrust. And we are again giving the impression the school does not care about any laws, regulations, or ethical standards for special education. If we look at a 504 meeting and we start to meet all of the required legal ramifications and requirements that should be met, the positives, we are meeting the requirements of the 504. And of course, all other legal ramifications. We have better communication that has been established. We have an alternative schedule that is going to serve all of the needs of Miguel Hernandez and all future students. All legal requirements are met. The cons are going to be a little bit more minor. We have a money factor that is now going to become an issue. And the amount of money it's going to take to bring everything to satisfactory for the standards of special education and its program and the standards, it may become expensive and create a financial issue in the district, but it's also going to be completely necessary. With organization and methodical planning, when we look to improve, the principal should be able to implement this 504 plan with ease, and it's going to be an example that we should follow all legal ramifications. The plan needs to be put in writing, kind of as a contract. And we do this with all special education because it is a legal document. It is a legally binding contract. It should be signed by both parties, a beginning and an end date. Everything should be listed and adhered to strictly. All stakeholders, department head teacher, other administrators, all other teachers, everyone involved need to be consulted, notified, and aware of this new arrangement. All legal and ethical parameters need to be adhered to in all processes. When we look at the best option, in addition to the development of the 504 plan, the principal is going to develop and implement an in depth monitoring and evaluation system. This is important when all decisions are made. This system it should be a system of supervision with actionable feedback specifically designed to promote and support improvement of teachers, student achievement, success, everything that we can afford to these kids, as well as the school district, to avoid future issues of the same nature and caliber. And it needs to always include clear and structural expectations. With the help of other stakeholders, a 504 plan will be drafted and adopted. Everyone involved will have the opportunity to read over the plan before it is decided to sign and agree to the terms. The plan will be written as a contract to be signed by both parties. All stakeholders, department head, teacher, other administrators, all other teachers involved need to be consulted, notified, and aware of the arrangement. And this is going to include Dr. Harvey, of course. Once complete, everyone involved, including the principal, will need to complete a reflection in order to continue to grow professionally. It's always good to look back at situations like these and reflect on what could we have done better? How could we have come to this conclusion in a quicker manner? All legal and ethical parameters need to be adhered to in the process, and this needs to be something that is done always. Surveys of the school's performance, attitude, connection with kids, as well as assessment data from the 504 plan to analyze the progress or lack of progress made in the achievement will be conducted. We need to look at all aspects of this as to see what we could have done better, what we've done right, and how we need to improve. A beginning and end date need to be listed, and this is going to be the case for all special education. And everything needs to be adhered to strictly. For implementation, although it is likely to achieve a positive outcome, all consequences as a result of the decision will be dealt with in a professional manner. With all needed stakeholders involved, it is always important to be transparent, to keep others involved when needed for legal and ethical ramifications. Stakeholders who will potentially be involved in the process: administrators, teachers, staff, students, Board of Education members, community and business members, everyone who needs to be involved will be involved. This is a situation that can be handled in house per se, for the most part. If the problem persists and becomes out of control, it'll be necessary to then involve superintendent, possible school board members, financial implementation and changes to this physical building, and the other ramifications, as according to the law, will have to be dealt with through Dr. Harvey, the superintendent, as needed. Every school needs to be in compliance. If problems persist and become elevated once again, a professional warning needs to be given to the building leader and the special education department so they're aware of the possible ramifications of this unprofessional behavior and adherence to the legal um, ramifications of policy. Plan B. There always needs to be a plan B. If the desired outcome does not occur from the initial decision, the second course of action will be to conduct meetings with the building principal, superintendent, as well as other district leaders to analyze the progress, lack of progress, anything made in this achievement. All information needs to be gathered, processed, and attached to all documentation to the already documented evaluations and observations. We need to continue the process as seen fit by the parents of Miguel Hernandez, as well as Miguel Hernandez himself. This will also open the door to any other parents who wish to bring suit against the school district for lack of professional judgment and legal authority bound by the law for the success and future of all students. This especially needs to be kept in mind. When we open that door, it is like Pandora's box. We need to have a conversation with the building principal, all building principals, to give all of them the professional courtesy of warnings, as well as for these professionals to be aware of the ensuing consequences for not adhering to legal ramifications as for policy of special education. Thank you.